Our session is now live. Great. Welcome everyone to our Block A session of our conference today, where we will hear about a great initiative born in the School of Business of George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. I am Aphrodite Anastasaki from the United Nations Institute for Training and Research based in Geneva, Switzerland. And it's really a great pleasure and honor for me to be moderating this session with two distinguished guests today, from whom we will learn about the Business for a Better World Center housed in the University School of Business, and whom I'll introduce just in a moment. Our speakers today, they will address how the center integrates the SDGs in its mission and activities, and how it fosters collaborations and partnerships to produce change and innovation in the business education curriculum, but also to train the next generation of leaders to solve pressing issues we face today in new ways. So I will start by introducing our speakers today. We have with us Lisa Green-Pemple. Lisa serves as a Director of Global Impact and Engagement and co-founder of the Honey Bee Initiative in the School of Business. And she supports university-wide initiatives that engage students of all majors in social innovation. She's an award-winning professor, and she's passionate about teaching and encouraging students to become thoughtful, ethical, and engaged leaders in her work. Our second guest is Anne Macro. Anne serves as Deputy Dean and Senior Associate Dean for Strategy and Impact in the School of Business. And Anne focuses on developing professional skills in future business leaders with an emphasis on teamwork, ethics, diversity and inclusion, and professional responsibility. So welcome to both Anne and Lisa. Thank you for being here to introduce us to the Business for a Better World Center. Before we start, I would just like to remind our attendees that joined our session that your microphones or cameras are automatically muted throughout the session. To ask questions to the presenters, please use the question and answer tool located in the tool ribbon on the right side of your screen. And we really encourage you to chat with your fellow attendees or put your comments, if you like, using the chat feature, which is also located on the right side of your screen. And one last thing I would like to draw your attention to is the slider bar beneath the video and content windows, which allows you to adjust the size of each window for you to have a better viewing experience. So if you experience also any technical issues during the session, please describe the problem in the moderator chat located just beneath the primary chat, and a member of our support team will be very happy to assist you. So we will have approximately 30 minutes of content followed by a Q&A session. And I believe now we are very ready to start. Lisa and Anne, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Aphrodite. And thanks to everyone for joining our session today, giving us the chance to share some of the work that we're doing at George Mason that speaks to the priorities that were just outlined by our plenary speakers. I also thank you for joining us, I noticed in the program today that the title for our session that got up there was not the most engaging. We submitted a different title that somehow didn't make it in there. But we're really excited to get started. But before we do, we want to get a feel for who's in the room. So we have a quick poll to learn a little bit about the areas in which you work. So Adam, if you could get the poll posted. The poll only allows you to pick one answer. So if you're a university level administrator, we put that in as a category, but you'll have to choose whether to identify as an administrator or from a discipline. I'll just give it a couple seconds there for people to respond. All right, so let's see the results. Hopefully people have had a chance to click on a box. Okay, so interesting. It's business, natural sciences, and college and university administrators who are here. I'm guessing the large number of college and university administrators represents the mix in the group as a whole. But I'm disappointed. I would love to have seen some humanities and arts and social sciences folks here as well, because I think a lot of what we do speaks to that and is actually based in that. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the center and what we do. We're all in this virtual room here today because we know the world faces myriad wicked problems, right? And the university has a role to play in addressing them. If we didn't believe that, we wouldn't be here. And no one here, I think, would argue with the premise that we can't really address these complex challenges unless we collaborate across disciplines, across sectors. It's the only way we can achieve real progress to accomplish the global goals. And businesses have to play a role in this. Businesses control vast resources, human resources, financial resources, physical resources, and they have tremendous political power as well. So if we're going to make the change we seek, businesses have to take a leading role. So as you'll see during our presentation today, the Business for a Better World Center at George Mason uses the global goals as a focal point for our work to bring businesses of today and businesses of tomorrow into this movement for a better world. So what we're going to do today in our presentation, we're going to start out, Lisa's going to tell you a little bit about Mason so you have a sense of the context in which we're working. I'm then going to share this vision and the mission of the center. Lisa will very quickly cover kind of how we're organized, and then we'll spend the rest of our time really talking about the work that we're doing and a few of our signature initiatives. So Lisa, would you like to describe the university?
Absolutely. George Mason University is actually an anchor institution for the National Capital Region. We have multiple campuses in Northern Virginia, and we have one in Korea as well. It's the largest public university, well, research university in the state of Virginia. And in the past half century, we've grown from a really small satellite campus of the University of Virginia to one of the most influential institutions of higher education located in the dynamic Washington, D.C. region. We have about 39,000 students who hail from 130 countries and all 50 states. The School of Business has about 5,500 of those students, and a key tenet of the school's mission is to be a place where business is a positive force in the world. Mason is ranked 35th nationally for innovation, according to the most recent U.S. News and World Report, and Mason is ranked as the top public university in Virginia for for innovation and ethnic diversity, and it's tied, well, I messed that up, I'm sorry. Mason has the top ranked public university in Virginia for ethnic university, and it tied for 15th nationally for innovation. So in addition to the large number of students who are the first in their family to go to college, more than half of our students at Mason identify as non-white, and in the School of Business, 70% of our students identify as non-white. So our diversity in thought, geography, demographics, disciplines, and so on, is really the key to our success.
Thanks, Lisa. Our context is really important as it informs our work, and it uniquely positions us to further the global goals by providing opportunity for underserved populations who can in turn further the goals by making a positive change in the world and their own communities. Our vision is simple. Our vision is that in our ideal future, business is a force for good in the world, leading the charge to address the world's complex challenges, the world's wicked problems. We accomplish that through 5 elements of our mission that you can see here. As a university, obviously, education is at the top of our list, and we view educating those who are typically underrepresented in business and leadership roles as a special responsibility and a special opportunity. We generate knowledge, not just to advance our careers or to boost the reputation of the school or support the status quo, but really to challenge business as usual, to think about a new way forward. We convene thought leaders, bringing together people to share ideas, to generate new paths forward, because again, collaboration and sharing of ideas is going to be key to affecting change. And we aren't just satisfied to work through the people that we educate to have a secondary or tertiary effect through our students and through the businesses that we engage in. We really want to have a primary effect ourselves and affect change on the ground. We want to be on the ground doing the work that we teach and giving our learners, our faculty, our staff the chance to make an impact as part of their relationship with Mason. And finally, we're at the forefront of the movement to change business education in the ways that we've just discussed. And to the extent that we have success and that our center is a model, we hope to share that model, share our successes, and spread this through business schools across the business school landscape. Lisa, now I'll tell you a little bit about our team.
Yeah, so we have a fantastic team. Even though we're relatively new, we launched last fall. But we have a really diverse board who represent all sectors, business sizes, alumni, and community partners. And we have affiliate faculty who come from across every school across our university. And we have more than 50 affiliate faculty, which I think really speaks to the need and the interest in this type of center. And not surprisingly, we do quite a bit of work with graduate and undergraduate students as well. And Anne, there we go. If you go to our next slide, Anne, that would be great. We're thrilled to have an extensive network of global partners. We've been members of the UN Global Compact since 2012, and we're also prime champions. So we've really had the good fortune of working with so many leaders in this business for good space. And of course, Jose Andres with World Central Kitchen and Jeffrey Sachs at the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network are two of our partners. And now we are going to turn to our work. And we have 5 signature initiatives that we're working on, and we'd really like to take a few moments to share some of these with you. The first one is our Impact Fellows program. It's a 2-year wraparound program for first-generation, lower-income, disabled, queer, and underrepresented racial and ethnic minority learners. We launched our first set of Impact Fellows just this year with 30 students. They'll take courses together, such as our liberal arts and business and society courses. They'll have the opportunity to learn about the UN global goals and engage in co-curricular activities. And students are going to receive professional and peer mentors, and they'll complete their program with paid internships. Pandemic and funding permitting, we hope that all of our students will benefit from international travel. And now Anne's going to talk to you about our summer internship program.
Lisa, did you want to talk about the impact internships?
Oh, yes, I did want to talk about the impact internships. I'm just mindful of the time here.
I think we're doing fine.
Oh, we are? Okay, great. We do have impact internships, and really those are about providing students with unpaid internships, funding. Oftentimes our students have to turn down internships that would really help them further their career because they're not paid. And so they choose to work in a restaurant, which is a great job, but it doesn't help them really pursue their passion and their dreams. There are also stipends for our internships that are central to our students who perhaps would have to move. For example, there might be a really incredible opportunity in New York City or in Minneapolis, Minnesota, or in Atlanta, Georgia. And quite frankly, the cost of moving and finding housing and providing for food is cost prohibitive. And so our students end up turning down those really amazing internships so that they can save money and be at home and, again, working at jobs that aren't part of the jobs that further their careers. So we started this summer by raising some funding to support students who had unpaid internships or needed to offset some of their housing and food costs so that they could really pursue an impact internship that was near and dear to their hearts. And now Anne's going to tell you about our liberal arts and business summer internship program.
Thanks, Lisa. So at George Mason in our School of Business in fall of 2015, we introduced a new curriculum, a redesigned undergraduate curriculum in the business school. And a key element of that new curriculum was our Business Foundations curriculum. And that curriculum takes a liberal arts approach to the study of business in order to build a strong foundation and understanding of the context of business for later technical business classes. And the Foundations curriculum includes courses like Business and Society, in which we consider the role of business in society and the impact society has on business. The global environment of business, again, not technical business classes, but really understanding the environment in which business takes place throughout the world. And courses in professional skills and responsibilities, where students are really challenged to think about what kind of business leader they want to be and the kind of skills they need, the ethical considerations and the responsibilities as a professional. So we built on that, thinking about small liberal arts colleges and students there who also are getting a liberal arts education and the great value of a liberal arts education, who often will end up working in businesses of one sort or another, but don't have the opportunity within their educational experience to really learn about business. So our summer program builds on our liberal arts focus and provides those small liberal arts students the opportunity to learn about how businesses operate and to learn about the potential opportunities for them to create good for the world within a business context. And this summer in our first class, we had 3 Mason graduate students from the business school and 8 undergraduate students from Carleton College. And they came together to further the work of the center, but also to have the opportunity to engage with faculty, to engage with business leaders, to learn about the different functions of business and to learn about the role of business for good, so that they can pursue their own opportunities. And we had a really tremendous experience, tremendous response from the students. And we're now working with Carleton to expand that program for next year and thinking about how we can expand that to other colleges in the future to give more students the opportunity to take part in this. Lisa, I'll talk to you now about our social incubator.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have a social incubator that supports social enterprises, and this social incubator focuses on a number of areas, including remediating poverty, reducing food insecurity, improving healthcare, including mental health, ensuring greater access to education, and reducing racial and gender inequality. So our social incubator model provides space to convene and share ideas, mentors who can work alongside people in the social incubator and provide much needed expertise. And also we have seed funding that provides participants in the social incubator with funds to help start up ideas or purchase supplies that are needed for their endeavor. In the middle, you'll see a picture of our honeybee initiative, and it's probably the most robust of our social incubator programs. We founded it in 2013, and we've had lots of accomplishments to date. We've gone from 4 hives on the campus to over 800 hives. We've gone from a campus focus to a campus plus global impact focus. We've included embedded global study abroad so that our students can benefit from traveling to Colombia to see what it is that we're doing in that part of the world. And we've also engaged in multiple partnerships across sectors. So in Colombia, for example, which is one of our main programs with the Honeybee Initiative, we work with rural women and we focus on using beekeeping as a means of empowering women financially. And so we work with a bank there that provides funding. We work with 12 municipalities, so the mayors and the local government are involved. We work with a local university that is in the area as well. And of course, we work with the beekeepers and members of the community. That project has been so successful that this year, our executive director for the Honeybee Initiative submitted us to the Latino America Verde Awards, and we won 15th overall for our social and environmental impact. So that program has been really successful. In Peru, we work with rural communities and we focus on the Amazon, where we're using bees, but it's more than bees. It's using bees to instigate conversation about conservation, how to avoid destructive practices like logging and find other sustainable means of economic empowerment. And that project is growing. It's taken a little bit more time because we work in a really remote region. We also work with a lot of regional areas in our community. So we have this wonderful project with the Covanta Fairfax landfill, where we're rehabilitating a local landfill and conducting pollen studies on heavy chemicals and metals to see if we can figure out if there's the presence of pollution in the region. And we're also using that as a means of, like, when elementary school children come and they want to learn about wasteful management and best practices in wasteful management, they also get a lesson in pollination and pollinators and how pollinators contribute to food security. And one of the other things that we've done is worked with a local brewing company to develop a beer called Patriot 57. It's a honey beer that's made with our honey and sold in local stores in our area. So our future goals are really to scale and replicate the Honeybee Initiative, but we also want to expand and adopt new incubator models into our program. So we've partnered with our Mason and partner health clinics. Those clinics provide free healthcare services for immigrants and refugees. And we're working with them to ensure that employees who have tested positive for COVID, and they have an 83% positive test rate, are going to be able to get back to work. So we're working with employers to make that possible. We're also exploring ways to expand the reach of the clinic through a different business model. And finally, we have a Mason greenhouse that provides microgreens and other vegetables to our dining halls. but they produce an excess amount. So we're looking for ways to create a sustainable business model that supports food deserts and lower income areas in our region as well. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Anne, who's going to talk about stakeholder value creation.
So until recently, the dominant view in the world of business was that the purpose of a business was to build value for its owners. And the shareholder primacy view was, instantiated in the Business Roundtable mission statement just 25 years ago. But around the same time, there was a movement building around stakeholder value theory, around the idea that businesses should generate value for all their stakeholders, not just the shareholders. And other stakeholders here include the employees, the communities in which businesses are located, the customers of the business, the suppliers, so people through the supply chain, and in fact, the planet as a whole. And so just recently, the Business Roundtable and its almost 200 CEOs took a new approach and embraced the stakeholder value approach to the purpose of a corporation and issued a statement just a year ago that says that the purpose of the corporation should be to create value for all stakeholders. The problem, of course, is that it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. And there's a lot of question around whether we even have the systems in place that would allow us to do it. And again, back to the premise of our center and of this whole organization, right, is that business has to be engaged in this work for good and for saving the planet. It's not going to happen if business isn't engaged. So our project around stakeholder value really includes efforts across three components, right? Research, curriculum, and engagement. On the research side, we're really working to determine if and how stakeholder value creation occurs, and to make sure that we have the necessary legal, ethical, financial, and economic frameworks in place that can assist the shift in focus to a stakeholder approach. For example, most corporations are incorporated in a state that requires, as a legal requirement, that corporations and boards work for the good of the shareholders. Well, how can a company say it's going to work for all stakeholders if it's legally required to work for the shareholders specifically? So that's one of the elements that we're looking at and thinking about. How do we make that shift? How do we, what is the state in different states, and how do we make changes there? We're looking at how we talk about stakeholder theory and more broadly the SDGs throughout our curriculum. So we're engaged in a curriculum mapping activity in the business school. We're looking at the development of a minor and looking at a concentration within our undergraduate degree and concentrations or certificates within our graduate programs. And then finally, we're engaged in engagement around this question of stakeholder value creation through roundtables, bringing together all the stakeholders. Otherwise, what we have is boards of directors, which largely are composed of CEOs of other companies and shareholders in companies who are sitting around and making decisions about what's good for all stakeholders. But those are the same people who've been making the decisions all along for what's good for shareholders. And so do we really get a shift if we don't see some changes in what those boards look like? How do we make sure that the voices of all the stakeholders are heard? And one way to do that is through roundtables and bringing those people together to talk about what value means to them. We're in the process of developing a stakeholder value creation index, a way to measure. We talked a lot earlier that I think all of the plenary speakers spoke to metrics, right? So what are those metrics that tell us how value is being created for stakeholders? How do we hold companies accountable? How do we put a mirror in front of their face so they can see how they're doing, the progress they're making, and really identifying those companies that are role models and that others should be emulating. And finally, we're engaged in public-private partnerships, bringing together the expertise of our faculty with the expertise in the business world, with data that's available in the business world. So for instance, we're partnering with one company to look at ways to use the vast databases and resources they have in data and our skills in data analysis to try to understand where value is being created for stakeholders and where it's not, and how we can move that all forward. I'm going to turn it back to Lisa now.
Great. So one of the joys that we've experienced is being able to convene people on campus already. And really, this slide goes back to one of the key elements in our mission, which is being part of leading that movement to rethink business education. So part of that is having some responsible leaders on campus speaker series. And we do that in a number of ways. Today we kick off after this in the afternoon, the first in a series of lunchtime conversations, which is focused on the sustainable goal number 10 on reduced inequalities. And we have speakers like Steve Pearlstein, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning economist for the Washington Post, who's going to be talking about wealth inequality. Another part of what we do with our Responsible Leader series on campus is bring in well-known outside speakers to talk about the relationship between business and society. So last fall, for example, we had Andy Farrow, who was the Chief Sustainability Officer for Mars, come to campus. We also had Jeff Foote, who used to be the Chief Sustainability Officer for Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola is still his primary client, and he met with our students and talked with them. This fall, we are delighted to have Dimfna Vanderlands of the Clean Cooking Alliance come talk to our students about a case that they read in one of our undergraduate courses on clean cooking. And we also welcome Robert Putnam to talk about the issue of stakeholder value in today's society. He's coming in November. So in addition to these types of speaker series that we have on our campus, we've also had the benefit of hosting a number of conferences in the past and leveraging our global partners like Ashoka U, like GRLI, like Prime North America, and bringing some of our colleagues to campus where we can really think through what some of the best practices are. What do our students need to be going out in the world today to be successful, to create that world that is going to see a marked change in the progress with the Sustainable Development Goals. So that is what I have for responsible leadership gatherings.
Terrific. Well, we have come in well within our time. My children always tell me that I talk entirely too fast, so that may be a piece of it. And we do have a lot more work that we're doing in the center that we didn't really go into in detail here. So, Aphrodite, I guess we'll turn it back to you now in terms of moderating any questions there might be. We look forward to hearing your comments and answering your questions.
That's great, wonderful. Thank you very much, and Lisa. It's really great to see how really the center is encompassing sustainability, and in this way it can really drive change. For me, it was very interesting to see not only in the direction of reinventing the ways of educating for business, but also supporting really and impacting so meaningfully and in very practical ways the diverse community of your students, but also the social community you create around the center. And I believe this is very powerful, and it has a great potential to scale up the impact of and advance the very important work also the communities and the social enterprises, the work you do with your social incubator, as we saw, because they work on critical SDG areas. And for me, it was fascinating from your presentation to hear about that you really work on the spot, and you're very proactive in working on timely issues, very pressing issues now, as reintegrating people back to work from this difficult situation we live in, or having the honeybee initiative that is not only an initiative for climate change, also to raise awareness for a better, more positive impact, and also the gender empowerment and the work you do there. So it was very fascinating for me to see all that. And so now, actually waiting for the attendees' questions to come through, because we haven't received any, and addressing our attendees, please feel free to use the Q&A feature to ask your questions. I have a question. I have lined up some questions for you, not a lot. So I would like to ask you, what do you think is the biggest challenge that you face in engaging the business? You mentioned about having the roundtable discussions. So what are the most important for you challenges in engaging business and the business stakeholders actually in the conversations, really advancing the dialogue between all the parties that are involved?
I would say, I'll give my first response and Lisa can add to it. One of the biggest things I think that's been a hurdle for us right now is honestly timing. We launched our center in November. It was, as the prior speaker was mentioning, it's not like nothing had been happening at Carnegie Mellon before they started their sustainability initiative, but it was a bringing it together and a formalizing. So we'd certainly been doing work in the space, but we hadn't really formalized the center until the fall. And then we moved directly into COVID. And so COVID and the pandemic has highlighted for businesses the important role they can play, but it has also made business leaders very, very busy, right? They are busy dealing with the work that their groups are doing around COVID. They're dealing with their own employees. They're dealing with issues in their supply chains and how they can keep their businesses alive and moving forward in this time. So that has really been a big one for us. I think the other one that I would say is that there are many business leaders and many people who will say that businesses, by definition, in what they do in terms of creating jobs and providing employees an opportunity to make a living, are doing good in the world, and that maybe that's enough. And so, we are finding a lot of business leaders who share our view and who are interested in ways that businesses can really help address the sustainable development goals and move the world into a more positive place. But there's certainly a number of people who challenge the idea that that businesses are doing anything but good right now.
Right. Okay.
Anything to add to that, Lisa?
Yeah, no, I agree exactly that the first thing that you said is exactly where I was going to head with it. I think the other challenge that kind of relates to your second point, Anne, is that we've, been fortunate to work with the Business Roundtable a lot. And so when they came out with their statement saying that the purpose of a corporation had to extend beyond profit to supporting communities, it was a different world. And so I now think that companies are well-intentioned, and now all of a sudden the bottom line is becoming increasingly important as they face those very challenges that at least the dual pandemic in North America has caused. So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point. The shift, back to my comments I was making before about our stakeholder value creation project, the shift from a shareholder primacy to stakeholder primacy view was going to take a lot of work and was certainly not going to be without hurdles. In the best of circumstances, the times we're living in right now, where companies are facing, some companies are facing existential crises. So I would say probably the Business Roundtable companies are not in that group, but this is a difficult time to make a shift away from shareholder primacy. And so I think that makes our work even more important, and engaging people. And I think, with the shareholder or stakeholder value index is a way of just keeping people on course and reminding people that we're watching, that we're listening, that we care, that we're behind the roundtable statement, and that we expect businesses to move in that direction, and that we want to do everything we can to support that and to make sure it becomes a reality.
Absolutely, yes. And also prioritizing, again, social impact, because now businesses, they prioritize, well, mostly survival and continuity of their business operations. But I think the SDGs can really be a good value proposition for them to do that and to restart, if you would ask me. So we, in the meantime, we have received two questions here. The one from Hope is, what has your students gone on to do from engaging in this program? And similar to the program initiatives in the center and business school, she asked if there are any virtual exchange programs going on for this business program. And since it will be a great collaborative model for this program.
I was gonna say I can take a stab at that. Yeah, you can jump in then with that. I mean, one of the points that I'm not sure that we emphasized as strong as what we probably should have is that though our center is within the School of Business, it serves all of Mason's students. So the first part of your question is we are a relatively new center. So figuring out where our students are going after that is something that we're starting to track at the moment. But some of the students who have already gone on are doing things in the humanities, the natural sciences, the social sciences, in business, of course. We've got a student who is in graduate school now pursuing a degree in a master's in public health. Her goal is to open up a healthcare clinic in the home country of her parents in Nigeria. We've got another student who received 4 offers, each from the Big Four, and she's actually already moved a couple of times, but she's taken this program with her and was one of the students who went on the Honeybee Initiative, and it really changed her life. While we don't have any exchange programs going on at the moment, this is something that we've talked about with our partners in the Principles for Responsible Management Education Champions Group, maybe thinking about ways that we could do that. COVID sort of threw a wrench into it and is making us rethink what the possibilities would be for that. But we do take students. We have a pretty robust global study abroad program where you can apply for funding through the university to help offset student costs. And so we've taken students to Colombia to learn about the Honeybee Initiative and about the triple bottom line and the way that sectors can work together to address different kinds of challenges. And the university that we partner with there did send a few students over as part of a grant we received. And so we were able to show them some of the things that we do on our campus. So that's how I would answer it. Anne, I don't know what you.
Yeah. And I think, the idea for virtual exchange programs is a really good one, and one obviously that we're thinking about in terms of, as Lisa was talking about, our Impact Fellows program and the goal at the end of this year to sort of take them on a residency, right? Give them the opportunity. Our idea would be to give them the opportunity to look at some of the challenges that we've looked at locally and how our local groups and local communities are dealing with them, and then to look at some of those same challenges in another culture and another context, right? So they can look at the same problem from 2 different sides or more than 2 different sides. A virtual exchange program is a way to potentially accomplish some of that. I don't think a virtual exchange program ever is going to capture the same. It's going to have the same impact as being in the environment, being in the context, and seeing the people and talking to people and living with people. But it is, we have learned through this pandemic, right, the power of virtual meetings, and they may not be everything that a face-to-face meeting will be, but they certainly have advantages, right? Advantages in terms of potential access and a smaller impact on the environment, and so there's obviously benefits to them. So I think that's something that we will want to do more of and need to take advantage of. I did want to speak. I've been watching the chat here while we're talking as well, to Wendy's comment about this being the best time to shift away from shareholder primacy to stakeholder primacy, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, the last thing that I think any of us want to see is that we build back to exactly what we had before, right? Everybody talks about the new normal, and my biggest concern is that the new normal is the old normal. And I don't want the new normal to be the old normal, right? This is a chance for us to do things differently. When, in a time when systems are broken, it's a chance to rebuild them and rebuild them better. And that's really where I hope it will go.
Yeah, and I just was going to say, to add on to what Anne said about to Wendy's point, I think the other thing that I would say about that is that our students are driving this forward. I mean, our students are demanding that we think about stakeholder primacy. They are looking at companies and organizations and saying, what are you doing beyond, the day-to-day business? What are you doing to give back to people, to the planet? What are you doing to make this world a better place to live in? And so our students actually are one of the driving forces behind why we believe that we need to rethink our business education and what we're doing to prepare students. So we're getting that from students. We're also getting that from our board members who are saying, you really need to think about a different set of skills for your students so that they're prepared to come into this employment market. So we're getting it from both ends. So I agree with you.
Yeah. And I always try to make the point, and I think it's really important. It's not like learning about the Sustainable Development Goals or thinking about how business can be a force for good is something for people who are choosing to go into the sustainability department at a corporation, or that there's some one place in a company where this happens. I mean, the way I think we really get to systemic change is that we need to have business students and leaders of other organizations, because we also we educate thousands of students outside the business school as well who take courses within the business school. But what we really need to do is make sure that throughout the organization, you have people who have been exposed to these ideas, have thought about them, have thought about the ways that businesses and other organizations can play a role in moving the world forward. And that we really have these people throughout the entire organization. It's not, obviously having leadership at the top is really important, but a lot of the change that happens is really driven from the bottom and can be driven from the bottom. And that's really, I think, a unique opportunity we have to get this throughout our entire business school curriculum. We end up educating about a quarter of the students at Mason. We'll take a course in the business school. So we have the opportunity to get a lot of people thinking about these ideas and then taking that out. And so we really have the chance to have a really great impact here. And that's really exciting, especially, when you look at the set of students that we have at our population. We have, so many students who come from backgrounds where they don't necessarily have access to resources, and their communities haven't had access to resources. And to think about, supporting them as they develop as change makers so that they can then take those skills and the knowledge that they gain with us back into their communities, or, out into their careers, which then filters back down through their families and through their communities. That's one of the really great things about Mason. When you go to graduation and it's the first person in the family to graduate from college, and they've got literally sometimes 50 people there with them, supporting them, and every single person wants to shake your hand and give you a hug and thank you for being part of their students' education. Places like Mason just have, it's really it's a privilege to teach at a place like Mason and to have that kind of impact with our population.
I think that's absolutely powerful and very novel in the way you design your initiatives and program for the center, but also for the business school. So very quickly, do you think that, and also based on your mission, lead an international movement like this and to reshape business education, very quickly, if you could tell us, send a key message to other business schools that they want to pick up the SDG call and produce initiatives like this, and to innovate for education. Would that be making business education more inclusive in the way you approach it, or what other significant aspects you would see in this direction?
I think one of the things that is really important is to collaborate, is to, not try to do it yourself, to reach out to other universities that are engaged in this space, reach out to community partners who are making a name for themselves in the social impact space, to really develop a coalition of leaders around this topic, because we can't do it alone. And so I think learning from other people and leveraging the resources that we have is really important. And if anyone wants to reach out to us, we'd be happy to partner.
Absolutely. I think and I'd also like to point out that if I could say one other thing there, that the Principles for Responsible Management Education, which is part of the UNGC, is already working in the space, right? You don't have to recreate the wheel. There are groups out there, there are schools out there that are working in the space, and the Prime Champions that we are part of over the last couple of years has been putting together a blueprint for integrating the Sustainable Development Goals into the business curriculum. I apologize, my dog's going crazy in the background here. But reaching out, joining Prime and learning about opportunities like Prime Champions would be a great way to get started as well.
Great. Thank you so much. And I believe that whatever we discussed in the session, that answer quite a lot of those questions you might had. And I hope we can continue exchanging on business and business education for the SDGs, and really see also your movement, Anne and Lisa, growing with more partners and shareholders. And our time is up, actually. So thank you both, Lisa and Anne, for the great presentation and discussion. We learned about the Business for a Better World Center at the Business School of George Mason University. And I'd like to take a moment here to thank really the organizers and the conference committee to support us in running the session and making it happen. And also thanks to our audience for attending today. Thank you for your commitment. The recorded session will be shared with all of you. And thanks to all again. The conference continues with more parallel session, and enjoy the exchange moments. And here we give a final wave. Thank you all, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.